Well, hello and welcome back to the Middlemen podcast. After our first live stream since lockdown, we're back on Spotify and however else you get your podcasts and YouTube as well. And we're going to be talking about that fight that we live streamed, the Leigh versus Mauricio Lara showcase of about. It really was phenomenal watching Mauricio Lara stop Leigh or Leigh corner throwing in the towel, whatever way you want to look at it. Just a night of boxing to remember for a long, long time. So we'll look back on that. Leigh withdrawing because of his team, and Mauricio Lara going on probably now to go and fight Josh Warrington. And there was some beef on ringside as well from Saturday night. So plenty to talk about this week, including, I think we'll start with the really, really sad passing of John Motson, who, to all of us, and Max and I studied sports journalism at university, so commentators, part of folklore for us. As a child growing up, I can speak for both of us, John Motson was a hero. He is the voice and was the voice that you've just associated with football. You've got Martin Tyler now, and children growing up now will have other commentators like Jim Proudfoot and maybe Guy Mowbray on the BBC. But John Motson, I think we were sort of the last generation to get the best of Motty, and it was a really sad and a really heartfelt moment yesterday. Just he's gone. It was quite hard to contemplate, and it was one of the first things, as you always do when you wake up, you look at your phone to see what's going on, and it was the BBC notification, the first of the day, that Motty had passed away. So I think I can only say that he was a hero. And like I said on my Instagram, I think he was a pioneer in terms of the way he's led sports journalism and the way he's carried it forward, an inspiration. And Max, he's someone who will remember.
Oh, most definitely. He's such a piece of football in history. And as you said, we were the last kind of generation to soak in his greatness and to be able to consume the greatness that he put out there in the world of sports media and commentary. Just an absolute all-round legend, and such a sad thing to happen. Of course, he was coming to his old age, but the respect and the outpour of wholesomeness that I've seen across media in reaction to his passing has just been phenomenal. From football clubs to, of course, Match of the Day, where he really established himself as one of the best commentators in sports of all time. And just, seeing all the media come together to honor his passing and to give, his family and him now their wishes is such a shame. But yeah, as you said, mate, I think you nailed it completely on the head. One of the best to ever do it on the microphone, gave us so many iconic sporting moments, just an all-round legend. And, when you're talking about him, even if we spoke about him 2 weeks ago when he was still alive, you would never have one bad thing to say about him. With other commentators, you might maybe find a flaw with them. Me personally, I never speak ill of the dead anyway, even if he wasn't a good person or anything, but like he was just, from everything that I saw from him, everything that I heard from him on the mic and just videos of him, mate, an all-out legend. Not one bad bone in his body from what I could see from him and from the person that I could see he was. And yeah, just an absolute shame to see him go.
Yeah, it truly is. And the word legend is thrown around far too often nowadays. And he really was a broadcasting legend and someone who dabbles in a bit of commentary myself, but for the BBC and in local radio, just where Motty started, I can really connect with John Motson. And I listened back to him, and before he made it big, and the break he got when he called Ronnie Radford's goal, he was saying that he struggled as a commentator, and you feel those struggles as a young BBC radio commentator coming through. So for me, John Motson just relates to me. He really does, and
Yeah.
yeah, a really, really sad loss. And he would have loved Saturday night's boxing. He really would have done, because it's just class Motty, and the way he could call a fight, or obviously a game, which is what he was best known for. The way he could pinpoint a name when they entered the 6 yard box, when they were right in the thick of the action, when there's a sea of shirts, and he could always pinpoint who would score, and that is really hard. So a complete legend. And like I said, I think he would have loved Saturday night. We certainly did. And we will honour John Motton by talking sport. And we can start with, I think, the Maurizio Lara victory, a seventh round TKO. I mean,
Yeah, I
how do you
think that's
call it?
what it's.
TKO? It's gone down as
I
TKO?
I think that's what it goes in as. Yeah, just it's a technical knockout, isn't it? I think, or a retired retirement RTD. So a TKO or an RTD,
There you go.
whichever one you want to chalk it off as.
So you can go with either. And the fact of the matter is that having actually not we, on our live stream, we were saying it was very, very much Leigh Wood who was in control of that fight for the majority of it until they both locked up in the seventh with 10 to go. And Lara landed first and he landed heavy, having also, let's not forget, he landed just moments before and had Warrington in a little bit of trouble there too. And then Ben Davison, Warrington, Leigh Wood's coach, uh, throws in the towel. 10 to go. Was it the right decision? Personally, I still don't think it was. He's come out and said, well, imagine you're standing in front of one of clearly now the world's best punchers, heaviest hitters in that division of that weight class for 10 seconds, having already received a bit of a battering and put yourself in that position. And that's where he comes from. And he believes that he would have been harming his fighter had he have let Leigh Wood stay in the ring. What are your thoughts on the Max? Having had time to look back, did Ben Davison make the right decision?
I think he most definitely did. It was very controversial and very hard to process whether he did or not at the time. Um, I initially my very first impression, which you can see on the live stream, is that I thought he was impulsive. I thought that he saw Leigh get hit with one big shot and didn't. I mean, it's perfectly okay if he didn't want to risk seeing him get hit with another, but he did get hit with another, and then he threw the towel in. I think it was perfect timing. Um, Ben Davison gets a lot of stick on social media. Everyone calls him a fitness instructor or a PE teacher, and he gets a lot of this, but this guy is a fantastic coach. He's coached, multiple world champions, and he's just shown another level and another layer to what makes a great coach is your timing, and not just timing of when to give your fighter a pep talk in the corner or when to get your fighter to step up a level. It's also taking your fighter out of that equation as well. He could have easily left him in there. As you said, there was so many factors that would have allowed him to not have thrown in the towel, but he fought against them and he said, no, my priority is the welfare of my fighter. I don't care if it's 10 seconds or 100 seconds or 1,000 seconds to go in the round. I know they don't have that many seconds in one round, but the timing at the end of the day is irrelevant when you look at Wood's condition, because it was only going to get progressively worse from there. I don't think, we spoke a lot about intelligently defending yourself on the live stream on the night, because that's when I think a referee should really be stepping in for a stoppage, because I think we were looking at
Well, we
the
were looking at
Dalton,
the fight before,
yeah,
and
the Dalton Smith fight, wasn't it?
it was astonishing how the referee let that fight go on.
Yeah, but as we were saying, and that's why intelligent defending was kind of brought into it, because Dalton Smith's opponent just about managed to stay in there and convince the referee, but it wasn't about the referee in the main event. At the end of the day, Ben Davison wasn't convinced, and that's all it needs. I would love to see more coaches do what he does and not get high on the potential glory of the fight, and keep that priority even when your fighter is like, because as I said, he had every reason not to throw that towel in. His fighter was 5 rounds up. He can, if he maybe saw that
Would he have
round
come
out.
back from it? Do you think if that fight had gone on, he would have come back from it? That's what Tony Bellew's saying. That Tony Bellew
Yeah,
says, "What did you expect? Obviously, you were going to get hit and get
yeah,
hit hard by Maurizio Lara. Look what he did to Josh Warrington, uh, and look what happened with Conlon
but
when Wood
but
fought him. He came back."
what I say is, in the Conlon situation, that was the first round, so Leigh had a lot more time to recover. And now I think it was even closer. I know there's only 10 seconds left in the Lara fight. If I'm not wrong, I think he even had less time in the first round in the Conor fight. I might be wrong about that, but Bellew actually did end up backtracking and went on Twitter to formally apologize to Ben Davison, if you saw that, and he said, fair enough. And Leigh Wood's, done the same thing and backed Ben Davison's decision and said, of course it was gutting at the time, but how can you hate a guy that's got your best interests and your health in his best interest. So I mean, yeah, he has got recovery skills. He's proved that he's got that before, but why risk that? It's all if buts and maybes. Yeah, he may have recovered. He could have gone back to the stool, and that minute could have been vital to him, and he could have come back again. But as we saw, all it takes is one big shot. Wood got a little complacent about it and got taken down once, and Lara's capable of that from the first round to the 12th. So I think it was inevitable that another big shot was coming in, and Lara's got this belt now. He's beaten a power puncher with it by his own game, and he's put the whole featherweight division on notice with great boxing IQ, which is going under the radar of a lot of
Very clever
people's
fighter.
impressions of him.
Very clever fighter. The way he fights on the inside, he can land hooks with such speed and accuracy, but he loops them as well. He can keep taller, bigger opponents completely within his own reach and in control. A really clever guy and a really smart puncher, like you say. I'll tell you what Ben Davison said. He says that I've got what Tony Benny said in front of me. Ben Davison says what was going through my head was, can he defend himself? If we stand in front of someone and count to 10, that's too long to be in front of someone if you can't defend yourself. So that's what Ben Davison said. Lara's response was hilarious. I wasn't surprised. I was glad that they threw in the towel. I saw how he was moving. If his team would have allowed him to continue, he would have suffered even more punishment. Yeah, well, that's definitely something Mauricio Lara is going to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Lara is this really weird character who's come out of nowhere. Like, he has come out of just completely thin air by the looks of things. And then he goes and beats Josh Warrington once, then the second time was a draw, and he torments Warrington even more. Then he goes and spits at Warrington after this fight. Said Josh Warrington is being wound up and tormented, and to the point where I think it would be the logical conclusion to see a third fight between them both. And then as for Leigh Wood, where's he left now? He's 34. 2 years ago, no one had heard of the guy. He was a British champion fighting at Wembley Arena. Now, like we said before, jumping on air, he's at loose ends because he can't fight Luis Alberto Ramirez
Lopez. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's fighting Michael Conlan in Belfast in May. That one's off the table. Warrington Lara is almost certainly going to be on the table too. So where does it leave both fighters? Where does it leave Leigh Wood?
There's a lot to tie up in this featherweight division now, but I think that's a good thing. I think it's given us good headaches because there are so many matchups that we can put together and are getting put together. First of all, though, like to comment on Lara's character and who he is, it's a really strange one, right? Because I see like different sides to him every time.
Because he was getting teary. Yeah, so you get this teary, big soppy
Exactly.
side. Before a fight, you get the I have no mercy side, and then he's getting upset about comments Warrington's making about his dad. It's like the guy has 3 or 4 different characters.
Yeah, and you never know which one's going to turn up. You know which one's always going to turn up in the ring, but outside of it, it's very confusing. And he's I don't know if there might be a language barrier, like we've seen it in fights like Canelo and Plant beforehand, where something's been completely misinterpreted and has had violent consequences. I don't know if that's the case. Not to say that Warrington hasn't been trying to rile him up. Of course, you do that with every opponent to try and sell a fight and to promote it. But I think Lara's taking this is personal narrative a lot more than Warrington is. Even though Lara's taken away every kind of success.
Warrington's saying that he doesn't understand it. Warrington's saying, as he said something wrong about Mexican food. Where is he upset Maurizio Lara? He says something about his dad, maybe a little bit complacently not thinking, but Warrington doesn't. And he said, didn't he, in the first fight, I've got nothing but respect for you. The second fight, the tone changed where he says, right, now this is business. But Warrington, you feel, has never really stepped over the line. Here's Maurizio Lara spitting at him.
The only thing that I can think about, which naturally would completely frustrate you, is in the ring during their fights. And I can see why, now you said it, I can see why Lara's opinion, I don't think it warrants such a response that you go and spit at the man after a whole separate fight. But in their second fight and the first, and even in Warrington's last fight, he's a known headbutter, right? He comes in, charges in with his head a lot. Albeit Lara was doing that with Wood quite often in their fight as well. But Warrington is very known for it, charging in with his head clumsily, and that is literally why the second fight got stopped. So it makes sense. But yeah, as I said, I don't think it warrants Warrington to be spat at. But if we're talking about Lara's in-ring style and that he comes across like a wild kind of brawler, slugger, not really clever, but when you actually look into his boxing, he's a clever boxer. It might be the same outside the ring. He might be evolving such a narrative with Warrington because he beat him in the first fight. He beat the brakes off him in the second before it was stopped. I think he's just picking up an opponent that he seems is easy enough to beat for his first world title defense.
Yeah, you may well be seeing dollar signs. You may well be talking the talk because he knows he can walk the walk, unlike maybe Jake Paul, who I think will get a lot handed to him on Sunday night, isn't it? Very quickly before we move on to Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, I've been reading a lot about this Josh Warrington beef with Maurizio Lara because it is quite entertaining. And Warrington has essentially said that could you imagine if a British fighter spat at someone? Could you imagine the uproar in the press? How it would go down, how it would be received. But no one seems to bat an eyelid about Mauricio Lara doing
No, yeah, no, you're completely right, and I think when it's maybe a foreign boxer coming into our home soil, we kind of see it more as the entertainment drive, and it's not really the case. At the end of the day, boxing is a gentleman's sport. It's about respect, and he didn't show that. And I think, especially after you've gone two fights with somebody, fair enough, they did try and fight dirty. There's got to be some kind of level of respect there, but Lara's just showing completely none at all. But then, to Warrington, but then there's videos emerging of him embracing Leigh Wood in the dressing room, and which is kind of hypocritical to the quote that you just read about what he said about Wood. So as we said, he's a very, very unpredictable kind of character.
it. Really is. I'm going to have to plug in my laptop very quickly, which is something John Watson would hate because he was the most prepared man in the world.
The
I thought it was
most
plugged in.
prepared and
I
professional.
think
Hey,
I think we're
but
plugged in now. I
oh,
think we're
brilliant,
okay.
brilliant. Marty had struggles too, and I was
Oh
about to
no,
say no
no
before
way. My laptop is.
what's happened? Noah looks stressed, guys. Noah looks really stressed.
So if you notice a little cut there on YouTube, it's because my laptop crashed for the first time ever in recording this podcast. So a little bit of middlemen history there. A little bit of a stressful moment as when it flashes up and it says batteries low, and you're thinking, all right, you haven't got long in it, but I thought I had longer than I had, and I didn't. And my laptop locked. It's only locked once before. That was at Sheffield Wednesday where it locked because of the cold, and I couldn't send off a match report to the press association. So clearly only happens in big important moments on big important podcasts like this one. So back with the laptop nicely charged, and we were going to go on to two men actually who are very fueled for this fight, very charged up with Tommy Fury and Jake Paul. And we have to talk about it because it's being spoken about everywhere. Everyone's interested in this fight. You speak to someone who's never watched boxing before, they know about this fight. You overhear it in the shops when you're down the supermarket or wherever you are. This fight seems to be gripping people. So, however trivial or ridiculous it may seem to some boxing fans, it is very, very relevant and one we're going to have to speak about. So, it's Sunday night in Saudi Arabia between Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. And for me, there's only one winner. I mean, it's Tommy Fury all the way. It has to be Tommy Fury. Jake Paul has only ever fought, as Tommy said in his press conference, 50-year-old MMA fighters. MMA is not boxing. And Tommy Fury is 23 years old. He's absolutely massive, and he's boxed for most of his life. Jake Paul's been in the sport 3 years and has never beaten anyone worthy. Okay, you can argue Tommy hasn't either, but at least he's beaten boxers. Jake Paul's never. He's only ever fought MMA fighters. The guy has no idea what's about to hit him. If Tommy Fury loses, I'm going to look very foolish. He's going to look very foolish, and the rest of boxing will look pretty foolish because I think Tommy has the whole sport riding on his shoulders. He may well have been a Love Island star. He's still, like it or not, a professional boxer. That's what he gets paid to do by his sponsors, which makes him a pro boxer. He's a ranked boxer, and he's got the chance to either put this Jake Paul fella to bed or throw himself into a little bit of a stir, into a little bit of a storm.
Or he gets put to bed, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And we have seen that Jake Paul does possess, albeit over pensioners who should never have any business still being in a fight. He has displayed one punch knockout power, but this is the thing. This is not a 40 or 50-year-old person. This is a man at the peak of his powers. Not even at the peak yet. Tommy's still very young.
He's young.
He's only must be sub
23.
25.
I think he's 23. I think. Yeah.
So yeah, as you were saying though, first Noah, I remember when celebrity boxing started creeping in, and we were like, as a podcast, how do we handle this? Because at heart, I'm a boxing purist, and you have, the main traditions and the best values of boxing at your heart as well. As we both wrote for a website that was very integrated in boxing history. So to have something very, very new and very fresh come along, we didn't really know how to handle it a little bit at first, and we were quite tentative. But now, as you were saying, this is everywhere. It's in my boxing gym, but a lot of the boys that train, and I was the same when I was boxing competitively. I didn't actually have a clue about the main kind of climate of boxing. I was a fighter before I was a fan, and then after I stopped competitively, I became a lot more of a fan. And these boys who at the time are fighting competitively and aren't really fans are still invested in this fight and still know about it. I was getting a trim earlier today in the barber shop and had 2-3 people talking to me about it, so as you said, it is everywhere.
I mean, Carl Froch just called Jake Paul up.
Jake Paul, yeah. It's very interesting, isn't it? The way that Paul can get under these guys' skin though, and lure them all into a bit of a situation. But this guy, he's a clever guy. He gets himself into positions, win or lose, that he can't actually lose at, because with any of his opponents, and probably his future opponents now, even with Tommy Fury, if he loses, he can say, all right, lost to a guy who's been boxing all his life and he's an actual boxer, so what do you expect me to do about it? Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
you can't have both. You can't say that you've been training harder than him, doing all this, because when you say that, then you can't use that as an excuse. You can't then go on and say, oh, I've lost to a boxer who's been doing it all his life. Well, you say you've been training harder than him, so
yeah.
By doing that, that's going to promote the fight. You've got no excuses now. So I want to see Jake Paul lay it out. But this guy has such a lack of fundamentals, such a, I want to say unorthodox style. But when we talk about unorthodox style in boxing, we think about Roy Jones Jr., we think about Tyson Fury, people who have successful unorthodox styles. But I don't think this awkward, weird style, this foundationless style of Jake Paul is going to have any success against Tommy Fury.
Well, it's a style with no structure. You cannot have structure being so new to the sport when you've only fought old men. You are completely right that this guy can't lose. Financially, he's already a winner. Winning or losing this fight is irrelevant according to his bank balance, because it's going to go through the roof with everything associated with this bout. And also, it's exactly like Wayne Rooney at Derby. If he loses, well, you're meant to lose. If you win, it's great. You're beating the odds. So he's in a very comfortable position. He's a really smart guy, and I'll never take that away from either of the Pauls, Logan or Jake. They both come from very, very humble beginnings. So with KSI and his career in music and boxing and prime, these guys are clever advertisers that they promote these. I think Jake Paul will be a brilliant promoter. The way he manages to promote himself, and if, like, he's completely naive, and he probably plays up to that. And why wouldn't you? Because it gets you media attention. In his prep before this fight and in the way he's spoken, but he knows he'll lose. He doesn't care, and why would he?
There must be something kind of said about, well, first of all, about Jake Paul, how Noah there, you gave him credit for his promotional skills, and going in last year's fight in May between Taylor and Serrano, Jake Paul was actually the lead promoter for Serrano, so that goes to show that he does have all of those qualities that you were just talking about. But I think, as you said as well earlier, for Tommy Fury, he's a representative of boxing right now. Especially for the purists, it looks like a celebrity's come in and became an imposter in the sport and tried to establish himself in the sport in a fraudulent way by fighting people who aren't recognized in the sport but have got in a boxing ring and lost to him. And he's claiming that he can fight Canelo. So I think that's how he's ruffled feathers. So then for Tommy to be the first pedigree boxer that he's fought, Tommy's got a lot. He's got
weight.
Pressure.
He's got weight on his shoulders, and he carries that name as well.
Like no other before, yeah. And he could be Tommy John. Do you know what I mean? He's still got an immense amount of pressure without being a Fury. So then you bring that into it, and it's a whole other ball game. But we have to look at why Tommy is pressing for a fight against Jake Paul when, as I said, he's a pedigree boxer. Why is he not looking for these ranked guys if he's ranked? And that's because, right, personally, I think he has a lack of belief. I know, listen, he's got a baby on the way.
Does he have a lack of belief, or is he settling himself for the future with a huge payoff? And also, Tommy Fury, like it or not, is world famous right now. You go anywhere in the world where anyone knows anything about sport, and they will be talking about Tommy Fury, who went on Love Island, and that's how no one had heard of him before Love Island. And Jake Paul, who's a YouTuber. These guys are well famous, so maybe it could well be that he doesn't have belief in the proper pro ranks, but maybe he's simply thinking there's nothing to lose with this. It's only gain.
It's a slippery slope though, because what if he loses? What has he got to gain after he loses? Okay, fair enough. Take the Jake Paul fight, win that, get your massive payday, and then go into the ranks. Maybe that's his plan, but what if, and God forbid this happens, but what if he loses?
But surely he won't. Surely he will not lose.
Opportunities.
Well, he's got the risk of being disowned by his family if he. Let's be real. Tommy Fury will be humiliated if he loses this fight.
I will be humiliated if he loses.
Everyone will be. Everyone will be. But there is no. I don't see a way that Tommy Fury can lose a fight like this. I really, really don't. Whether he's fought some of the most journeyman boxers in the history of boxing before, it doesn't matter. This guy is a boxer, and Jake Paul isn't. It's like Carl Froch is saying that he'll knock out Jake Paul. Of course he will. Of course.
Yeah.
Carl Froch says he'll knock Jake Paul unconscious. Of course he will. It's like anyone else. You go to the gym, you go down the gym in Derby, get some big muscly guys in there who I'm sure can throw a punch, right?
I've been in there with some of them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, you don't mess around with them. And you know what? Yeah, they can throw a punch, but they can't throw one against a boxer because a boxer can move and duck and have the skill and ability.
I thought you were talking about a big muscly boxer there.
Well,
I've been in there with the boxers, but not on the streets with them in Derby. I wouldn't go near them.
No, I wouldn't go near him. But I think Jake Paul just doesn't stand a chance.
No, and this is the only reason that I say is a lack of belief. I still believe Tommy will wipe the floor with him because he has those foundations and those fundamentals that Jake Paul lacks. But I think lack of belief because, and this is why I have a small lack of belief in him, is because I've seen his last few fights and they've been far from impressive. But I still think, impressive or not in his previous fights, he still has what it takes to beat Paul. And And if it just goes any other
Well, he
way,
didn't
it's
want
going
to
to be
take. He didn't
horrible.
want to take
It can't.
the.
It surely
He didn't
can't.
want to take Jake Paul's offer of all or nothing. Did John steps in and says, "Yeah, we'll have that," because I think John has all the belief in the world in his son. Maybe you are right. Maybe he's got that little bit of worry that he might lose this fight. Although personally, I don't think he will. I'm going to go Tommy Fury round 4 TKO.
I'm going to go Fury on points, but I think it's going to be a dominant.
Points?
I think it's going to be a dominant. No, actually, do you know what? I'm going to take
Surely
that
not.
back. I reckon round seven,
Right.
TKO from Tommy Fury, because we've seen vulnerabilities from Jake Paul. We see more of his promotion than we see of his fights.
Well,
So
that's it.
we see what he
How much is
says.
how much has anyone actually seen of Jake Paul in a ring? How much have you heard of Jake Paul in a ring versus how much have
Exactly.
you seen of him?
You listen to him talk, and he talks like a guy that wasn't stunned by
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley. Sorry, that wasn't gassed after a 4 round fight. That wasn't rocked before. He has all of those things have happened to him, but he's
Yeah.
yappered his way out of it. So there will be no talking on Sunday night. There will be no talking, and all these vulnerabilities will show, but they'll show late because he has such a short gas tank that I don't think he can blitz Paul. But we haven't seen Paul really have to defend himself either. So,
Uh,
so Noah, that's where your prediction might become more accurate because say Fury just says, "I'm gonna go out there." Jake Paul can't land a counter punch. I'm gonna go
well,
out
that's
there
it, and
and put
that's
instant on
exactly what
him.
I think. I think if Tommy Fury says I'm going to go for this in the first 4 rounds, how can Jake Paul respond to that? Because you're right, he's never had to defend, and how on earth with is he going to take shots from a guy the size of Tommy Fury? For me, it just scientifically, like just logically, it's not possible for Jake Paul to win it. It's like getting an average guy who works out into the gym with a professional boxer. It's madness. But
And
they,
the funny thing is, though, is that the
mm,
average guy, and this is why it's very quite similar, they think they can just take heads off. If you give them like a few beers or a bit of alcohol or something that's going to make them have a bit of belief, they think, yeah, I'll take you. You know, you're not so much bigger than me. You don't know how to throw a fight. You don't know how to
yeah,
throw a
exactly,
punch, man. So,
exactly.
so it is a deluded type of belief, and I think that Jake Paul has that going into the fight as well.
Deluded type of belief that Jurgen Klopp has. You can come back and beat Real Madrid in a couple of weeks. What do you think?
I like to have it. You know, I like to have it. It's the hope that kills you, but why not? We've got nothing else. When you've got nothing else in football, you
Yeah,
haven't
you're
got the
right.
results, you haven't got anything. As long as you've got belief, you'll go a long way. And I think Liverpool are refinding their identity. They're rediscovering who we are as a club. You know, 5-2 down Tuesday night against Real at home. We're out in full voice, you know, Anfield's a library. It's been a library. Yeah, okay. Understandable. I'll take that. I'm
Oh,
not
Anfield was
gonna,
bouncing.
yeah, I'm not gonna argue against that. But when you're 5-2 down, you know, you'll never walk alone. I know it's our go-to song, obviously, but booming at the end of the game, you know, that's what that's about. That not necessarily belief. It's like, okay, we've taken our licks, but we take it all together as one, you know, as one club. If we don't get results, I'm so glad that I'm part of a club that at least has that.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it in many other clubs. And I actually think Liverpool were dominant until Alisson's mistake. I think that's what turned the game on its head. And then defensively, it was one of the worst Liverpool performances I've seen in a long time. I thought going forward, attacking Liverpool were brilliant in those opening stages of that game. And I thought you'd win that game prior to it when you were 2-0 up. It could have been 4 or 5, but it goes back to your defence. Yeah, similarly to Chelsea at the moment, who just cannot get through a game without a leak in their back line or something going against Chelsea that seems to just throw everyone off. With Chelsea, it's a load of individuals led by a guy who, like him or not, has never won a thing in his life, has never managed outside a top level club, and for some reason a very un-Chelsea style has the backing of the board. And look, Chelsea have Tottenham this weekend. Will it be Graham Potter's last game as Chelsea manager? If we
You
don't
hope
win,
so, don't
I
you?
suspect so. And oh yeah, I do hope so. Just because, and I said it at the start, I said it at the very beginning. what's the point of football? It's winning trophies. Will we ever win anything under Graham Potter? No. Will you?
Well, I think you'll
You're
have
not.
a
You
chance if you have a
no.
if
You
you
won't. You won't. It's the same team with Carlo Ancelotti or Rafa Benito, both former managers. All right. Same team with Diego Simeone. You would stand a chance, but not with a manager like Graham Potter. He's just not the right guy for Chelsea. It's not his football.
but do you think it's worth just seeing what he can come up with in the next month at least? Because you've brought so many players in that you can't expect them. Of course, you want an instant, immediate impact, but that is a needle in a haystack. That's a Luis Diaz, and those are so rare to come by. So don't you want to just see what could happen when the team gel and when they really build that chemistry? Or do you think that Potter can't
I
build the
do.
chemistry between
I
them?
do, but not under Graham Potter. I think I don't like criticizing managers. It's never nice to criticize a manager, especially when they're at your club. But when you look at someone who so clearly is out of his depth, and all he's doing by staying, in my opinion, is damaging the club further, especially if we lose to Tottenham. And Tottenham, like him or not this season, look pretty well together at points. And uh, Harry Kane seems to be in pretty good
Yeah.
form.
They've even
It's
got
good.
Emerson Royale scoring.
I know it's going to be a difficult game for Chelsea, and we can discuss Potter post that London derby on Sunday, and then it's the Tommy Fury fight that night. So a big weekend of football ahead, and it's always a pleasure to look back on boxing with you, Max. And it was a great live stream we had. So if you did jump on that live stream with us, then thank you very much for doing so. And I think we'll round up the podcast there. So thanks for listening, guys. We will be back with you after the Jake Paul Tommy Fury fight. How's it going to go? Surely there's
You tell
only
us.
one winner. You tell
Yeah,
us. Surely there's only one winner. But cheers for listening and subscribing and doing all you do.
yeah, we'd like to hope that there is one winner, but you log into social media, you'll see how truly divided it is. You guys let us know either what you think of the fight, who you think's gonna win, or if you see this after, what you thought and what were your main takeaways of the fight. But yeah, thank you for tuning in. Nice to bring some football and other aspects into it. Once again, R.I.P. Marty, a true legend of not just football, but of sport media and sports commentary completely. But yeah, as Noah said as well, fantastic doing the live stream last week. We hope to bring that to you a lot more often now. That was the first, and it certainly won't be the last. So look out for them as well. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.